Hi folks. So, I wanted to do one more video on Mars retrograde. And for those of you who are, excuse me, wondering, I am still testing positive for COVID, and thank you very much for your good wishes I actually just did a test earlier today because I needed to, and yes, it came back swiftly as a positive. And which is very much in keeping with this particular strain. And everyone I've talked to has talked about sort of a 2-week period of dealing with it, and then another week at the end of it after you test negative to kind of give it time so that you can be sure that you're not contagious, blah, blah, blah. However that works out. It'll roll out the way it's going to roll out. It'll be 2 weeks for me, probably as I head towards Monday. So we'll see how I'm feeling by the time this weekend is done. And as I said, thank you for your comments and your birthday wishes with the last video. Mars in Gemini. I've done a Mars in Gemini, Mars retrograde in Gemini video already that felt incomplete. And then when we talked about the full moon in Gemini about a week on December the 7th and 8th, we had to bring up and talk about Mars in Gemini again because the full moon was conjunct Mars. And because they're separate videos around it, I kind of, before I start to go into videos around Jupiter finishing up its transit in Pisces and us now starting to need to put our attention to the planets in Capricorn with Mercury getting ready to go retrograde at the end of December, I felt it important to go ahead and do a summary video on Mars in Capricorn so I can just do it and leave it out there because the Mars in Gemini, forgive me, the Mars in Gemini transit is not done till March. Mars is currently retrograde. Let's go over some dates. Mars entered Gemini on August the 20th. It went retrograde on October the 20th. And it's going to go direct on January the 12th, which is about a month from now, not that far away. And it's going to leave Gemini and enter Cancer on March the 25th. It makes, for me, 2 major transits. Now, 2 major transits here. 3 times each, because it makes the transit the first time when it's going direct, second time when it's going retrograde, and third time after it goes direct. The first is a trine to the planet Saturn in Aquarius, and those would have occurred on September the 28th and November the 28th. Now, Mars will make one final trine to Saturn, excuse me, but this time when it does so, and this is nice because it's on March the 30th, it'll do it when Mars itself is in Cancer and Saturn itself has entered Pisces. So there will be a third trine. And we'll talk about it when we get to that point. The fact that that final trine is going to be when Mars is in Cancer and Saturn is in Pisces seems particularly relevant to me. And I'll build on that in a second. The other important transit is 3 times squaring Neptune in Pisces. Now you can start to see why I think Mars trining Saturn in Pisces for the 3rd time might be helpful. And the squares to Neptune would have occurred on October the 12th, November the 19th, and then one final time while Mars is still in Gemini on March the 14th. Remembering that Mars remains in Gemini till March the 25th. Okay, so Mars enters Gemini August 20th, goes retrograde October the 20th, goes direct on January 12th. On March the 14th, it squares Neptune for the 3rd and final time, Neptune being in Pisces and Mars in Gemini. On the 25th of March, Mars enters Cancer, and on the 30th, it trines Saturn, which is now in Pisces, for the 3rd and final time. Now, while we've had planets transiting Sagittarius, specifically Mercury, Venus, and the Sun, and indeed the full moon that happened a little over a week ago, there were important transits with these planets in Sagittarius opposing Mars that have kept this Mars retrograde very much alive over the last week and a half. Now let's start to talk a little bit about the transit itself, why I wanted to summarize it. Mars, as you've heard me say many, many times, the male planet, the planet that, you know, if you archetypally think about testosterone and what governs, your vitality, your strength, your ability to build muscle, your ability to engage in conflict, to protect, to defend, to attack. the pursuit of your goals, the pursuit of your desire or desires, and also in a more romantic / sexual context, your desire, your libido. All of this comes under, a lot of people assign that to Venus, and I don't find that to be the case. I think Mars is the more telling planet in the way with regard to how we pursue what we desire and the energy or lack thereof we put into it. Um, so 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 hunter, protector, gatherer, pursuit of goals, protecting what it holds dear, what it holds important, what it values, and that's very much the Venus principle. What we value is Venus, and the pursuit of our desires, conflict, and our vitality. When Mars is retrograde, which happens once every couple of years, the first thing to note is the lack of edge, the lack of fight, the loss of vitality. Things becoming passive or passive aggressive, things happening behind our backs, things occurring without nobility or directness or forthrightness, therefore having a kind of a behind the scenes gossipy, backbitey, back-talking, backstabbing quality. I mean, I'm using some of the more extreme. It can even just be that things as they manifest in front are there's a puppeteering, or there's a curtain behind which things are occurring, and then people come out and communicate with you, or whatever it is. You yourself might feel like you are more inclined to engage and kind of hold your cards much closer to your chest. There's a cowardliness, perhaps, when we talk about conflict. As I said, lack of Mars, when it is effective, and again, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, is noble, forthright. The effective military leader, the general, the surgeon, the business executive who's pursuing goals, the doer, the executor of activities. And so, when it goes, and when Mars goes retrograde, another thing is that there could be kind of a white flag thing going on during this time, where there has been conflict. There's a desire to soften the edges and to build bridges. But it wouldn't be surprising if you feel, whether you're doing it or others are doing it to you, if the white flagging, again, has an agenda behind it, or even a softer way of expressing or dealing with conflict or in conflict situations, that whatever is being presented in a softer way, in a gentler way, still has an agenda behind it. It's just that the forthright male planet is not able to express itself in its usual way, which is necessary and useful, but often with Mars, it has to be said, it can create the pursuit of our goals, puts us on a path to be in, to potentially be in conflict with others. Either others are not willing to go in the same direction we're trying to go in, either they don't want to be on the same timeline, either they don't have the same sense of urgency. So the pursuit of our goals automatically puts us archetypally in this place where we have kind of a bull in a china shop quality, and aggression and assertion, if we were to be kinder, or if Mars was expressing itself effectively. There's definitely such a thing as an effectively expressed Mars. Direct, clear, focused, assertive. And this is the tricky thing with Mars, which is really not a Mars word. Calm, collected, those are not Mars qualities. But as we say, with Mars and Venus, these are the two planets where the yin and the yang are so polarized. An effective Mars will take Venus into account, and an effective Venus will need to take Mars into account. That lack is very pronounced and very felt when we look at these planets. An effective Mars will absolutely need Venusian qualities, grace. It does not have to become passivity. It does not have to become lying. It does not have to become saying what you think others need to hear to get what you want. It doesn't have to be manipulative, but certainly an ability to know when to let go, not a Mars quality, because Mars will never let go. knowing when it is that you need to take prisoners and when not to. You know, nothing wrong with cultivating, as you're going about pursuing your goals, a certain amount of harmony and grace and civility and decency and understanding and relationship building. Now, those are all Venusian qualities that would really help Mars achieve what Mars wants. In Venus's case, if Venus did not deploy, or if your Venusian side did not tap into your Mars side, you would never get anything done. You would just wait around for the apples to drop from the sky, and you know, the great risk in relationships would be codependency and passivity, to the point that you might think that you're doing the noble thing, but you're negating yourself to such an extent that makes your relationships unsuccessful. So the important thing to note with other important themes to note with Mars retrograde in Gemini is that, as I've mentioned to you before, there's something about, and this is very repetitive, I know, but I'm putting it all in one place, Geminian people, and by that I mean people who occupy the house that Gemini occupies in your chart. Okay, so where does Gemini sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? Who are the people who sit there? One set of those people could very well be important in helping you achieve goals related to the Taurus eclipses, where you're supposed to lean into, and help you achieve goals in the Aquarius part of your chart. Here, the trine with Saturn becomes helpful in securing the resources and the relationships that you may need in order to support the Taurus eclipses. I'm not going to expand on it a whole lot more. Support between the Gemini and the Aquarius part of your chart are working together. Mars trine Saturn is a gorgeous, gorgeous aspect when it's constructive. I mean, it gives you what you need in order to build something strong. So can the people associated with the Gemini part of the chart help you achieve important long-term goals in the Aquarius part of your chart by March, the end of March of this year, in such a way that it supports the Taurus eclipses? That's question number one. Question number two is, in the sign of Pisces, a certain amount of loss, hanky-panky, gaslighting, deceit may have been occurring where the sign of Pisces sits in your chart. A fogginess, a cloudiness on your part, cloudiness on the part of others, a certain loss associated with it. And the question becomes, are people associated with the Gemini part of your chart somehow involved in this activity? And if so, you might have an opportunity again till the middle of March to combat this, to call it out, to protect yourself around it. Now, while Mars is retrograde, as it is right now, you may not have the energy, the wherewithal, you may be much more in watching mode. And things that are happening might be feeling like they're happening behind the scenes, and you might be observing it, partly because you may not have enough vitality, partly because Mars is just not direct and you just don't have the strength. Similarly, others may perceive you as being cagey, or you yourself might also be being cagey in the way things are done. If there's conflict, it is unlikely, even if requested, for conversations to be direct. So even if you say, hey, I think something might be going on here, what is going on? It's very likely that the other person is going to respond, or you can reverse the roles. Just don't worry about it. But you know something is not right. Everything becomes, as I said, passivity, cowardly, when it comes to conflict, backbitey, backstabby. And even if outwardly things are being expressed in a positive white flag way, it still has that slightly manipulative component to it as these activities are being dealt with. But I would certainly, Mars, you have another month of this. Just know this. Just know this. One of the effective ways to use a retrograde Mars is to really take stock of how activities related to the Gemini part of your chart, as I said, might support the Aquarius and Taurus part of your chart, might combat what you feel needs to be combated, where boundaries need to be set in the Pisces part of your chart. There's nothing wrong. One of the words that I did not use, or I may have used in the first one, related to Mars retrograde is retreat. Retreat. Nothing wrong with picking up your stakes and moving them back. And in the process, paying attention to what might actually be, sometimes when we're moving down a certain path and galloping down a certain path, we might lose sight of the overall bigger picture. We might lose sight of what is actually happening. We might even, everything might be being interpreted through a particular lens, whether that lens involves conflict or the pursuit of goals. We may have lost the ability to see the forest from the trees when it comes to the pursuit of goals, when it comes to engaging in conflict and setting up appropriate boundaries. So using this Mars retrograde period, which continues till January the 12th, to understand what is important, understand what really does need to be protected, understand how you feel about it, being open to the fact that you might have misunderstood or misrepresented or misinterpreted certain things, being clear-sighted and watching what feels cagey and backstabby, but trying to distinguish where it is that your own imagination has taken over the narrative and where the facts might be a little bit more, a little less intense perhaps. Planning, starting to take action, starting to take a little bit of preparatory action behind the scenes, replanning, re-strategizing as you retreat and as you're not so much on the offensive. Just know that after Mars goes direct January 12th to March the 25th and indeed the 30th, you will have to tackle the consequences of whatever this retrograde is bringing. You will have to tackle it. You will have to set boundaries. You will have to be in conflict again. You will have the opportunity to pursue the goals that you want to pursue. Okay, so use the next month to think about how the Gemini and Aquarius parts of your chart, A, can support the Taurus eclipses, and B, what needs to be done in the Gemini part of the chart to protect against loss in the Pisces part of your chart. It becomes really relative as Jupiter by the 20th gets ready to be done with its Pisces transit, which is what the next video is going to be about. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. If I were to summarize without transits and all that, I would just say Mars goes direct on the 12th, and between the 12th of January, when it goes direct, and the end of March, you will have to pick up the pieces, and you will have to get back on the horse, and your energy will return, and either circumstances or your own desire to pursue goals or to manage conflict a certain way will force you to deal with things that have been occurring behind the scenes, or perhaps even more directly that you've been aware of but not been entirely clear of since August the 20th, certainly since October the 20th. And you may already have had an intuitive illumination about whatever this activity, some of this activity is, with this full moon that occurred on December the 7th and 8th. So use this time to shore up your resources, to rebuild your vitality, to recharge, because you'll have to get back on the horse and engage in a much more direct and energetic way after the middle of January. You know, Mars goes direct on the 12th, and I think Mercury goes direct. Mercury goes retrograde December 29th and then direct, I think, January 19th or thereabouts. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I think this at least this completes these videos and the stuff that I've done on Mars retrograde. Thanks for your patience. It's getting darker. It's 4:42. I think just the sun is set, but it's been a very cloudy day here in Los Angeles. I hope you found this helpful and useful. Do think about, just contemplate the Gemini part of your chart. Just think about it. Think about the relationship between people, their goals to be pursued in the Aquarius part of the chart, how that supports the Taurus part of your chart, and the conflict between people associated with the Gemini part of the chart and the Pisces part of the chart. Do something as simple as make your own to-do list as to how to pursue the goals, where the goals need to be pursued, Gemini, Aquarius, Taurus, and determine what you need to do in order to protect what is truly valuable to you when it comes to the Gemini and the Pisces parts of the chart. The Mars retrograde may help you get clear on what is essential, what is achievable. And it may very well be that right now a lot of this stuff is being held close to the chest. That's the other thing. All of us may well be planning and scheming and putting things in motion and doing things, but in a much more held to the chest way. As we head to the middle of January and into March, we are going to be, the cards will be on the table. And then that will produce, that's when the chemical reactions will occur. That's when things will combust. Mars will be direct, and final calls will need to be made as to how it is that we're going to be moving forward on how we're going to be moving forward with the pursuit of goals related to Gemini, Aquarius, Taurus, or the boundaries and the lines that need to be set, or the clashes that need to occur with Gemini, Pisces. All right, I will leave it at that. If you found this useful, share it, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell icon, the wiggly bell symbol above the bell icon to be notified when I do new videos, and I'll be back in touch. Thanks for your good wishes.